Merci Marika. Merci au panel. Des commentaires excellents. J'aimerais bien aussi vous remercier pour votre présence tout le monde ici aujourd'hui. I know you went through some lovely weather to get here, so that's you know, that very last comment, hope, espoir, is what I'd like to end on. Even though I would have some other stories to tell you, and these stories which I could comment on, and I'm very tempted, you know, of the water, issue that we've been discussing all day today at the Lantern. En passant, derrière nous avons des échantillons de certains des rapports du Conseil des sciences du Canada. Et c'est incroyable. Quand on regarde ces rapports-là, on voit les thèmes, les sujets qu'on vient de discuter aujourd'hui. There's one here on artificial intelligence 1994. There's one on parliamentarians in science. We've been talking about how to engage our elected officials much more, and of course getting the science community understanding it. Genetics and healthcare. Planning now for the information society. Arthur Cordell, who's over there, did a fabulous series of reports on the subject of privacy and the new generation of IT, ICT, what's coming out and how that's going to affect us. You know, you see all this. Michael Jenkins, who's here on industrial policies, technological sovereignty. Guy Steed as well, working hard on these issues. You know, Richard French, who was here earlier, who's left, did an incredible background report assessing the value or the effectiveness of a Ministry of State for Science and Technology 3 years after it was created in 1971. And of course, he came to a conclusion that we've got an issue here. You know, so I just wanted to draw your attention to a number of these reports that are out there. They're referenced, of course, in this fabulously edited book by Jeff Dufour, and they are contemporary and current, but the context has changed, and history matters, as Christiane has said. So let me just say a couple of quick personal observations, if I may. February 25th, 1992, I'm in Sao Paulo, Brazil, Rafael. I have just given a talk to their Science Council in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, on the work of the Science Council. It's a brilliant talk, as always. And I come back to the hotel, and there's a message waiting for me. It's from my beloved, who, by the way, is a VIP here tonight, the real VIP, with due respect, Karen, over there, who says to me, Paul, you've just been shut down. And I said, wow, isn't that great? Just like, wow, what a way to end off a trip. Go back. 3 months later, we close up shop. June 1992. But I learned some lessons from that. And Tim Hodges, who's also here from the Science Council, was there at the time as well. Janet Halwell. One of the lessons I learned was, you know, it's great to be fearless with your advice. But you always have to be very conscious of the context in which you're providing advice. Ça, c'est critique est très important. And at the time, there was another organization, by the way, in 1992, February 25th, 1992 budget, the federal budget, they cleaned out 22 agencies, they closed them down. Mostly think tanks. Including, by the way, something called the Economic Council of Canada, which had been producing some incredible studies on Canada's economy. And the Economic Council had the wisdom at the time to produce a report right in the middle of the referendum on Quebec separation, which sort of hinted to the government that the costs of separation aren't so bad. You can bet the Prime Minister at the time, Mr. Mulroney, went absolutely ballistic when he was trying to keep the country together. So I'm just giving you a sense that that was one of the key lessons I learned. Be very careful of context. Yes, we can learn from history, but you also have to situate it. The other thing that I've learned is personalities and chemistry in personalities matter. You can have a fantastic orator on how the science advice structure in this country works. And believe you me, I've been through many of those. In fact, I've closed down most of them. That's my skill set, and Monica always gets nervous when I mention this because I'm at the Institute, but she gets a little nervous. Oh, it's okay, Monica, it's okay. There are lessons learned to understand what we've just heard. The social capital associated with science advice is just as important. And by the way, science advice is not about science. It's an art form. That's important to know. Very important to know. By the way, I just want to, I have to make a small reference to a quote from our friend Roger Bollier, who passed away just after he wrote this chapter for us, chapter 3 on the annual reports of the Science Council. He went through them all and did a great job summarizing the trends over the years of the annual report. And he said in a little essay that he wrote, advisory bodies such as the Science Council are supposed to give expert advice. That is, they are expected to know the answers. This leaves little room for experimentation. Yet, in an uncertain world, experimentation among possible alternatives is essential. This requires a change in attitude and the establishment of flexible structures within which experiments would be possible. Now, that summarizes essentially a lot of what the science advisory structure history is in this country. It's been about experiments, many of which have failed, but we can learn from failure. I've certainly learned. I've survived. I'm still here. The word of experimentation is critical here, and I'm just getting a major flashback here. October 31st, it's Halloween, 1996. It's at the Chateau Laurier. It's the very first meeting of the Advisory Council on Science and Technology, chaired by Prime Minister Chrétien. Monsieur Chrétien introduces all the excellent members of his new council. These are very high-level people, very well known in their various respective fields. He opens the meeting and says, welcome, bienvenue. Well, you know, I get my advice from my brother, Michel Chrétien. Michel Chrétien is a respected medical researcher, and he opened his comments like that. We just sat back and absolutely gobsmacked and said, what? So why do you need a science council? That was his first and last meeting. I'm just trying to give you a sense of, there is the academic part of all of this. Et en passant, j'ai fait mes études à l'Institut d'Histoire et Sociopolitique des Sciences à l'Université de Montréal. And I learned about science policy from the top people at the time in the field. And it was an amazing experience. And one of those people got me the job at the Science Council in 1978. My very first job. She had just done a study on Canada's role in international affairs in science. Her name was Brigitte Schroeder. She's still in Montreal. She was one of my teachers. But she had just done this contracted study for the Science Council. She called up somebody, said, I'm looking, somebody needs a job at the Science Council. I got the job. And I didn't look back. So from 78 to 83, I was involved very much with the Science Council, various studies. The science education one, which came up today, was one of those, with Graham Morford and Janet Ferguson, which is, by the way, a very good study. One of the very few studies that was allowed by a federal organization at the time to wander into provincial jurisdiction to look at the science education systems and teaching in the school systems across every province and territory, including Quebec, en passant. It was a very good study looking at how you can improve science education in the schools. I took a break, moved to the Ministry of State for Science and Technology, closed that down. And then I went to the Office of the National Science Advisor for Prime Minister, closed that down. Anyway, but the point of all this is there is a forward path, right? And that forward path, by the way, that's the topic of my little introduction here. The forward path is the next generation. And Psi 4100D over there at the back, all those students are potential future science policy leaders. And so hats off to you, and I hope you can continue work. And I want to leave you with another quote from the book, but it's a quote that when we closed the council in 1992, there was a series of parliamentary committee hearings as to why the council, was shut down. There was testimony from various organizations, one of which came from John Polanyi, who, by the way, just turned 90 yesterday, Nobel Prize winner in chemistry. One of his comments to the committee in the head, then citizens should try to prevent that from happening. That was John Polanyi at his best, and he's a very articulate guy. And I thought, that basically says it all. Anyway, I just wanted to make one quick last comment. People wonder, why is it that the Science Council was lasted so long? I think Jeff mentioned, we've had all these councils, advisory boards, and so on. There were three things that I think stand out with the council. Number one, its mandate, while a federal mandate, allowed it to wander into national, pan-Canadian territory. It was able to undertake studies that a federal organization couldn't do normally. The science education one is one that I mentioned. The other thing is, it was able to do process was more important than the product. The council produced something in the order of over 400 reports in its lifetime, some of which are there. But it wasn't the reports and the recommendations that mattered. At the end of the day, it's how you influence through a process of consultation of what it is you're trying to change in the evidence and the decision-making processes that matters. And that the council was very good at. And the final thing, and it's come up on this issue about future, it had an anticipatory function, i.e., the council could look at things and say, maybe we should be looking at this thing that's coming up over the horizon, which is where the ICT stuff came into play, for example, or a consultation on emerging technologies, including AI, biotechnology, and the risks thereon. So there's a path forward. It's a yellow brick road. Oh my God.
It's a different metaphor.
Yes, I'm moving away from the water. I've had it with the water emission. It's a yellow brick road. There are no wizards waiting for us. The next generation is there. Thank you very much.